If you knew this is what you were going to do last time we talked, tell me now, and just tell me how this came to be that you all ended up on airplanes and back in Washington.
Oh, you know what? I never wanted to go back. I never wanted to go back. But I can be a little rowdy. And so I didn't want to go back because I knew that we were going to have a session that was going to be loaded up with what they have referred to as red meat, right? Things that don't matter to the majority of Texans, things that matter to the fringe right that the governor has decided he wants to pander to. He doesn't have Trump on the ballot. And so he's trying to get the Trumplicans to come out. And so he's trying to become a mini Trump. And so, you know, I don't want to do harm to the people that live in my district. So I didn't personally want to go back, but you got to understand this is a team sport. I'm single, I'm childless, but that can't be said for every single member of my body. And so everyone had to make their own decisions for themselves. And it was still going to take over 51 of us to be able to accomplish this. Sadly enough, one of my colleagues was actually going to get married on the House floor. It would have been the first union of two persons that are of the same sex. It would have been history in the state of Texas. She's missing her wedding now. So there are huge sacrifices that are being made. So I personally never wanted to go back. But obviously I do what the team wants to do. And I am so proud of my teammates. I am thankful that they were willing to risk it all, so to speak, because it matters just that much in the name of democracy.
What is the end game? Is it to show that these sacrifices, you know, endangering your sort of standing, and as you said, among your constituents, missing personal events, shows a sacrifice that's not mirrored by Washington Democrats?
Absolutely. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus to the extent that I'm saying that they're not doing enough. But I want to compare and contrast what we see happening in Texas, where they have the majority in the House, the Senate, and they have the governor's mansion, versus what we see with us having the majority in the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, and the presidential White House. You know, I want to see us moving the envelope. Your guest said a little bit earlier, it's time for a full court press. When we came before, it was just a few of us, and the bill was already dead. We didn't know what to anticipate. Now we know what's on the table. It's sitting there, lying there, waiting to die, right? But we know what it is. And I've brought so many more of my teammates. It's time for them to hear us. It's time for us to meet with Senator Sinema and anyone else that has any type of apprehension whatsoever about moving forward. We're not asking for anything to the extent that we're saying, hey, well, you know, expand. I know your guest talked about the fact that we're always playing defense, and I agree. We need to be on the offense every once in a while. But we are in a dire situation where we literally just need oversight because Texas can't get it right when they're trusted to do something. They always do it wrong. The courts have said over and over and over that Texas has been intentionally discriminatory when it comes to our lines and when it comes to dealing with voting rights. But we don't have legislation to go ahead and say they are being intentionally discriminatory at this point. So we need that oversight.
What are you hearing from Democrats in the Senate that you meet with? And do you have, last time you came, you didn't meet with Joe Manchin. You made a joke that you weren't sure if he was where he was or what he was doing. But do you have a meeting with him on your schedule this time?
So some senior Democrats did meet with Senator Manchin about an hour ago. So they did have a conversation with him. I think that I don't know that seniority is kind of what gets him to move. I think that it really was a good kind of mix of people, and hopefully he will move. What we did do while that meeting was happening, we've kind of divided and conquered. I was with Senator Booker. Booker is on our side, right? So my question is, who all really has some apprehension? Who do we need to talk to, right? Because maybe there are some other people that really aren't that excited about HR 1. We know HR 4 isn't quite ready just yet. So tell us kind of who may not be that excited, how we can get them excited. And if those people can then move either Manchin and Sinema to the extent that we can get something on the table. What most people don't realize is that if we got just an inch, that would protect us in Texas. Texas is the hardest state to vote in as it is. So we need some kind of oversight. We need just something. We don't necessarily need everything that's in HR 1. We would love to have it. But if we don't get anything, I don't know what's going to happen to our democracy. You see, our governor wants to lock us up.
This feels really important. I want to make sure I understand this. Manchin has a position now. We know what Manchin would support. And so you're really involved now tactically. And Booker is advising you guys in how to get to, because the White House's answer today was we don't have 50. And so we can't talk filibuster reform till we get to 50. So your effort today is about helping to get to 50 on, and what you're saying, I want to make sure I understand this, is anything to protect a state like Texas from the most onerous suppression laws. Is that right?
Absolutely. We would take anything at this point. While I want HR 1, right, I need something, because if we don't get it, I don't know what's going to happen in my state. That's how serious it is for us. And that's what we need to impress upon them, is that we need some kind of oversight. I may not get everything that I want. This may be one of those times that I have to settle for incremental change. But when you're talking about a state that says, hey, we want to take away 24-hour voting, there's never been that type of caveat. You only felt like that was necessary once Harris County, the most populous county in the state of Texas, one of the most populous counties in this country, decided to open that up. And when you hear testimony from first responders saying, hey, that helped me as I was working a 24-hour shift, on the front lines of COVID-19, I didn't have to stand in the line, or I didn't have to worry about when I could go vote. But it was a matter of I could go vote, or I could sit there and do drive-through voting. Or, in one of the versions of the bill, they wanted to say you can't have anybody else in the car if you're going to vote, even curbside. So people say who are going to get their children from school, you got to kick your kids out of the car if you want to vote. It's crazy. All they're trying to do is suppress the vote and encumber usually people that aren't as economically well off, people that are of color. And that's what the state of Texas is starting to look like. It's starting to look a little too colorful for the Republicans.
So you're trying to help them get to 50. And once you get to 50, then you can make the case to the White House that we've got all the Democrats, we've got the vice president's tie-breaking vote. Go ahead and reform the filibuster. Is that the plan? Absolutely. And here's the deal. We're not asking for widespread. This is a narrow issue, just on this issue. And we've seen the evidence of what's going on with our democracy. It's falling apart. And we're not getting bipartisan support. And I appreciate those that really want to operate in the vein that government is supposed to operate, in a bipartisan fashion. But when you see these sweeping laws that are going across this country, we know that these laws aren't being passed in a bipartisan way. And so we've got to do everything that we can to protect our democracy, even if that means that it's not in a bipartisan fashion. And some of your colleagues will be meeting with the vice president later today. We'll continue to call on you, Texas State Representative. I'm actually here right now. Are you part of that group? You're there. I am. So I'm going to walk in and see if I can meet her. I'm going to listen first. I'll let you know later what I had to tell her. All right. We wave your arm and we'll come back to you after that meeting or tomorrow. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Are you going to stay in D.C. until the end of the session? I'm staying for now. I'm working on a very creative plan. It will not involve me going back to Texas for sure. But I don't know that I'll stay in D.C. the entire time. But, our job right now is to lobby on the Hill as much as we can. But lobbying for 3 weeks, I don't know that we need to do that for 3 weeks. But I have something that I think may be a little bit more fruitful that we could do elsewhere. So I'm going to work on that, and I'll let you know if we get somewhere on it.